Hey everybody, I am back from tour Aotearoa, reminiscing about all 23 amazing days I spent on that trip. It was really an incredible ride and met and beat all my expectations of what that would be all about. I highly recommend it. I consider myself kind of an average rider. I do enjoy riding around town, commuting, but the thought of doing 130K a day definitely seemed a bit daunting to me, or even like, could I do it? But you work, I did train, but I also worked my way into it. Thought day two was really tough. I got lucky on the beach on day one with no major headwind. But by about day 6 through to about day 11, I was starting to feel really strong and pretty good. So you kind of work your way into it. And you get tweaks along the way, or a lot of people do, but a lot of them kind of come and go, and that's what you kind of got to hope for. Yeah, I love the trip and highly recommend it. There's a lot of stuff out there about what to take and bike setups, and it was the first time for me to do videoing or on any kind of trip like this, so I was kind of all new to it, but I kind of took what's on most people's list. Might have had a few too many things, but for the most part, it was good. But I wanted to do a video just on a few of the things that I found that were that I'm really glad I took, that or maybe not on everyone's list kind of thing. So I found a few kind of gadgets, and I thought some of you may want to do TA in the future, or again, or something else, and you might want to do some videoing, so I'll share how I did that. So to start with, I'm recording right now on the device I use for the tour, which is a GoPro 7. There's a GoPro 8 out now, but the GoPro 7 does have like stabilization control in it, which was why I had it mounted to my bike on some rough terrain, but the video still looked pretty smooth. I thought it worked really well. The quality of the video, I think, was great. It was better on the original than what it shows on YouTube, so you definitely lose some of the quality as you upload to YouTube. But just know that if you took it, the quality is pretty phenomenal. Sometimes I forgot to kind of clean the lens as I was going, but it all worked out well, especially for a first time. I mounted it to the front of my Aerobars, so I used the Profile T2 Aerobars with a 60mm riser. By the way, I love the 60mm riser. I would go with 60 or maybe 70, but it's not about speed, it's about comfort, and I was on these as much as I could, and I love this this bar. And I didn't wrap the front. I could have behind, but on one of them I mounted my GoPro with this cool little device here. This is a company, LAMMCOU. It's a 360-degree handlebar kind of mount for your GoPro, and it's good quality. It worked really well, and I just mounted it to the front of my Aerobar like that, and the camera was easily accessible. Just one press of a button to turn it on, one to turn it off. You could do voice control on the GoPro, but it would kill the battery more, so I just kept it simple and just turned it on and off when I wanted it. So yeah, that worked out really well. With the GoPro, it was mounted like this on my Aerobars because my Aerobars were tipped up. So that's why when I'm showing a view from the side, it shows like it's on a 45-degree angle, because it doesn't adjust that way. But when it was facing forward or towards me, I was able to keep the camera horizontal. And I wasn't trying to be like overly creative with the angled shots. That's just kind of the way the mount worked. But yeah, I'm happy the way I did that. There's maybe a better way to do it, but if you have your stuff separate, I don't think it would take a lot of time to set up your camera if you tucked everything away and brought it out each time you wanted to film. This way I was able to film just at any moment, just by a click of one button, so I did like that. Another thing, you guys will all be taking a pump on something on a ride like this, or any ride, but I wanted to mention this one because my local bike shop, Thomas and Renault down at La Bicicleta here, they were awesome and they recommended this, and I'm really glad they did. I was about to take my road bike pump with me, but this is a high volume pump. It's called a 1EDC, and it's really great. And inside it's got this piece that slides out. And this has got a place for a CO2 cartridge. I was running tubeless, so I did want to take one CO2 cartridge just in case I needed it to reseal the seat the tire. It's not on here now because I couldn't travel with it, so I took it off. And it's also, it just snaps open really simply here, and inside you've got a multi-tool, a chain breaker, a couple of chain links just underneath this black tape here. So you get a lot of little pieces in a small, really well-built tool. Highly recommend this pump to anyone doing any kind of trip like this. It was fantastic. There's a lot of lights out there, and I haven't tried them all. I'm not a reviewer, but I took this Surface Thunderbolt. I took 2 of them, mounted them on my rear stays next to my rear tire, nice, quite low down. They were easy to mount, they're rechargeable, they're very bright. And if one died, I had another one there right away just to turn on. Kept them charged as much as possible, but I highly recommend these. A lot of lights are higher up around the seat, and maybe your bag kind of blocks the view. So if you're kind of wondering how to get around that, a helmet light obviously, and then these. So that was a good one. I used a Garmin 530. Perfect. I had no issues with it at all. I had it on all day long using the map feature. It worked well. Yeah, I had about 65% battery left at the end of each day, so I had no battery issues with this thing. A couple of mates I was riding with used the Wahoo. I don't know what model, but they also really like that, and some of the features on the Wahoo are probably a little bit beyond the Garmin. But just keep in mind, more features and stuff like that, you go through battery a bit faster too, and you want to make sure you get through the whole day with a full battery. So it's just personal taste. I haven't tried the Wahoo, but I hear nothing but good things about that, and I use the Garmin 530, so I recommend that as well. I know this is on almost all lists, but I do definitely recommend you take some kind of headlamp. I use this every morning just so I could see my Garmin, so I knew I was on the right track, because you're always looking at your map feature on your GPS device. And I didn't want to use the backlight on the Garmin because it would just kill the battery so much. So I used this, and then also we came in a couple nights a little bit late, camping or whatever. It's great to have a headlamp. So I would definitely take, I mean, this one wasn't too expensive, but worked really well, and highly recommend that. I took a Grail water purifying system, which had some great reviews, but I never actually used it. I would take it again though. There was a couple days there where water's a little bit sparse, but there's some creeks around, and if it was hotter on those days, I could definitely see I would have needed. Those days that I was running through there was a bit cooler, so I wasn't going through as much water, but I would definitely take this again, even though I didn't use it on this trip. And I found this cool little bracket. This is a regular water bottle cage, but it's mounted to this piece. Unfortunately, there's no name on it, and I just found it on Amazon, but I mounted it to my Jones bar between my handlebar and my front bag, and it was just tucked kind of underneath there. It's pretty light, was never in the way, but it was just nice knowing I had it if I needed it. Water tablets would be fine too, because the chances are you can do the whole tour without even needing it, but this isn't too heavy, and if I did need water, I thought, well, I would have it for everyone I'm with, and it would taste better than using a water tablet, so I'm glad I had that. I also found this cool device here. I originally bought this for just stopping my rear sausage bag from swaying, because I just couldn't get it the way I wanted it. But it also came with 2 water bottle cages, so you'll see on my videos I've got the 2 water bottles kind of just behind my saddle. I thought that was pretty good. It's not super durable. It fell apart on me a bit on day 4 on some bumpy gravel, but that would be an easy fix. I would just in future, I would put some lock washers and some nuts on the back of these bolts, including the ones on the water bottle cages. They tend to work themselves loose. And that would just be, and then tighten it up really firmly. I had it pretty firm, but I did have it kind of come apart on me, so I lost one screw. Luckily I found another screw in the gravel, so I was able to use this the whole trip. But this is a company, just WOHO, W-O-H-O, and it's called the Externa V2 Anti-Sway Bar. So yeah, a long-winded name for a very simple device, but if you are having trouble with your sausage bag swaying, this is a pretty good option. I noticed some people out there had nice setups. Their bags didn't sway at all. Others are just going all over the place. So depending on what bag you have, you might find this useful. most people on the tour are using a Brooks saddle and they swear by them, and I had a Brooks saddle, but I did not give it the time to break it in. I think I just tried it for 2 or 3 weeks and kind of gave up on it early because the tour was creeping up on me, and I had read that this Sella and Atomica saddle was kind of copying the Brooks idea a little bit with a few tweaks, and this is just, yeah, the X2 they call it, and it doesn't take as long to break in apparently, but I don't know if it's as good as the Brooks. My friends that were on Brooks really like their Brooks. I like the saddle. I did have some saddle issues though, but they kind of crept in on me at about day 7, but I've never ridden 130 Ks for 7 days in a row, so I don't know if any saddle, and I didn't train that way, and I didn't even train on the saddle. I trained on my trainer for the TA using a different saddle, so it was pretty good. I would definitely consider either this or the Brooks, and if you're going with the Brooks, I would just allow some extra time to give it a chance to really break it in and treat it properly. And yeah, either one is probably pretty good. And the other cool thing I had is the seat post. I had a dropper post come with my bike, but I changed it out for this Connect post. It's Kinekt. It's just an aluminum post. They do make a carbon fiber one. It comes with 3 different springs depending on the weight. I used the medium spring based on my weight. I've had it adjusted. It was really good. I highly recommend this, but if I had done a bit more training on it, I think I would have decided to go with the heavier spring, just because there's quite a bit of bounce in this, but it didn't bother me. It's just occasionally it could bottom out, so I'd probably put the beefier spring in next time. But again, that was just my fault for not giving it enough trial and error before TA. So here is basically exactly how I had the bike set up for the tour. I have put it all back together out of the box, so you know, I've kind of just thrown it back together, but this is how we looked. It's an Ibis DV9 29er hardtail. I thought it was just the perfect bike for the job for me. There's the profile Aerobars you can see. I used 2 of these Aotearoa food pouches. I used one for water and one for food or just whatever I needed. And then I used this Ortlieb triangular bag, which worked nice. In that I just had all my nighttime bathroom stuff and some food. I used this bag at the bottom here. It was for my toolkit. I would not recommend that bag. If you are going to use a bag like that, make sure it opens on the opposite side of your derailleur, which I had right. So if you have to lie the bag down to open it, you're not resting on your derailleur. But I saw some guys using more of a hard, round, almost like a water bottle shaped case, which I think is much better. This is a little bit hard to repack and fold up. I did pack in this toolkit a couple tubes, an extra cable just in case I needed it, brake pads, which I did need. I had burnt through my rear pads, or almost, so when I was in Nelson I got those replaced, so I'm glad I took those. And then here you can see where I mounted the surface lights on the rear stay, which are really convenient. They're out of the way, and I was really happy with those. I had to put a new tire on for the tour, so I put a Maxxis icon on the back. Obviously, pretty much every video you see will give those rave reviews. I really like the icon. Basically, I liked it because I had no flats on the whole tour. This front tire is a Schwab Racing Ray, and again, I had no flats, luckily, so no issues there. Here's the Aotearoa rear sausage bag, saddle bag. I really like it. In case it settles or you get a bit extra weight, it'll hit here before it bottoms out on the tire. It looks quite close, but I found it did sometimes come all the way down to here, and I still had a bit of clearance. But I would recommend, sometimes the way I repacked it, it kinked on this underside. In future, I would probably slide in just a little thin piece of kind of formed plastic to hold its shape. If you pack the bag properly and it's really organized, it'll hold its shape, but you end up, you know, getting in there and shoving stuff back, and then sometimes it would kind of kink right along this line and then drop down a little bit. But everything stayed dry. I didn't have any issues. I've heard some of these bags are kind of more water resistant than proof, but I had no issues at all with the waterproofing. My front bag, just pretty basic. It's not full at the moment, but that's how I had it, and I used this strap to keep it supported and away from the cables. That's why I needed this 3 or 4 inch riser for my lights and my Garmin, just to get it above the bag. And as you can see, that's where I tucked the Grail water bottle. It was not in the way at all during the whole ride, and I am glad I took it. I think there's some instances where you'd want that. There's the profile Aerobars. These pedals here, you can see they're flat on one side, and I can clip in on the other, these Shimano pedals. I thought that was going to be perfect. I actually am pleased with them, but just to know, the guy we rode with, who was by far the strongest rider in our group, was the only guy riding on flats. And he was more of a mountain biker, but his flats, the way they stuck to his large pedals, were definitely better than what I had as far as a flat surface. These weren't as grippy, and especially with my shoes, they're a bit of a harder rubber on the bottom. So it is like a compromise situation if you want to be on, if you're on some trickier terrain and you flip these over. Plus, it is possible sometimes to get it wrong, and you can't, you don't get the right feel, and you might be clipped in when you don't even realize it. Consider using a flat pedal, a large flat pedal in future rides that have any kind of mountain biking to it. You know, it's just a nice feeling, not being maybe so locked in if the terrain gets a bit trickier. And they are grippy. Obviously, in like a sprint situation or something, you might not have the same advantage, but that's not what this ride was about. You know, you might have an issue, you're not using quite the same amount of muscle groups as you would with a clipless setup. So there is maybe some offset to it, but you know, just having a flat pedal with a comfortable shoe that you can reposition throughout the whole ride is definitely something I'd consider. I'm not sure I would do it, but I would train a little bit that way and see how it felt, because I don't think you're going to lose that much overall. I mean, it's all more about comfort and just feeling kind of relaxed on the bike in those trickier situations more than the ultimate performance. I also used the Jones bars, which are pretty popular. There's some other options out there you might want to look into. I was happy with these. I did add some extra tape to make these extra thick, which I'm glad I did. I was starting to get some hand issues near the end of the tour, just kind of like some shooting nerve kind of pain here and there, but I think the extra cushioning helped a lot. You know, they're really quite comfortable bars, but you are still somewhat limited. I mean, you can see in my cockpit, I was pretty much in this position or on my Aerobars. Sometimes I'd even just hold on to here, but look around, see what works for you. It's not a bad option at all, and much more comfortable than probably the bars that came with this bike for such a long tour. You can do this with no suspension, but I would really only recommend that if you don't have any kind of body aches and pains on long rides, and if you have a certain medium to higher level mountain bike skill. You don't need a lot of skill, but if you don't have it, I think the shock helps. I don't think you need, I never felt anywhere I needed full suspension, but I was definitely glad that I had a bit of suspension through some of that. One thing I did forget to mention in the other part of this video is I originally had planned to take the footage and send it home using WeTransfer, or I practiced at home and it worked perfectly. But in reality, once I got to New Zealand, even with my unlimited data or Wi-Fi, I could not get the footage back to my son in Vancouver in order for him to edit it. So what I ended up doing is my cousin's son in Auckland, he uploaded it for me when I pulled through Auckland. And in a couple instances, I just used tech stores to help me out, and they did it for me. So what you'd want to do there is maybe call ahead, plan ahead. If you're taking your own video, allow half hour for a store to download the footage you have, and then they'll forward it to you if you want to get this stuff edited while you're still riding. And you can always wait till the end of the ride, but I wanted to kind of have videos coming as I was actually on the ride and get them back to my son. If you don't have anyone to edit it, or if you're not comfortable with that, feel free to get in touch with us. My son, he's 14. He loved doing all the editing, and I'm sure he would welcome the opportunity to work with anyone on something like this. But otherwise, it's probably something you can muddle through or hire someone else to do. But for me, I just took about 12-14 minutes worth of video a day, not too much. I didn't want him to be overwhelmed with footage. And then he just edited not too much out, just maybe some of the things that I had got my hand in front of, or you know, you might grab onto an electric fence and say some words that you don't want on video. So keeping it child friendly. So anyway, I think he did a great job, and yeah, feel free to reach out. So that's about it, everybody. I hope you enjoyed all these videos. I enjoyed taking them. I immensely enjoyed tour Aotearoa. It was terrific. One last thanks for my crew that were with me the whole time: Mark, Gavion, Badger and Seth. Really great time riding with you guys, and for those who I met along the way, it was just great to meet you. And yeah, if you're ever going to do this venture, all the best. Good luck with it, and yeah, just go for it. It's a ton of fun. So until the next one, take care, everybody.